I'm running for the Stable Population Party because I think this is an opportunity to give the Australian voters a choice. It's been very difficult for them to have a choice on population in the past, and the election is coming up. It may not come up again for another 3 years federally, and it's now or in another 3 years' time. So I felt that I should put my hand up and be a candidate in this election, because I've believed in this issue for a long time, that we really need to stabilise our population for many different reasons, including environment, infrastructure, services, to ease cost of living pressures. I believe that our cost of living is going up very greatly because of very high population growth rate. It's meaning that infrastructure has to be put in to supply electricity and other services, and that raises the cost to the end user. It's also raised the cost of water because the Victorian government has put in a desalination plant, which even if since we've been blessed with a bit of rain over the last few years and possibly don't need the water in the immediate future, we're going to have to pay for it anyway. Thus, these necessities of life, the costs are going up for these.
The Stable Population Party says it wants to protect native bushland and animal habitats. Is this an interest of yours?
This would be my prime interest. The way I become interested in the issue of population was through seeing animal habitat disappear. The habitats of our native species are being continually replaced by infrastructure and housing for humans, and without their habitat, our native species can't survive. We're going to lose a lot of them. This has been our history, and it will continue to be so.
So you're saying that the habitats of native animals are actually being destroyed in order to make way for human population growth?
That's right. That's right.
Could you give me an example of overstretched infrastructure in Victoria?
Well, just this week they've been talking about the Frankston Hospital with ambulances ramped up with patients and no beds. So that's an example of the lack of capacity of the hospital to cater for emergencies. Now, on the west of Melbourne, in the area of Wyndham, the council has asked for a cap on population because they are running so far behind with medical services and kindergarten, educational. The council is really finding it quite a nightmare, so in desperation that's what they've had to do in this area.
Behind you, Jill, is a billboard from a member of the government that preceded the government we currently have in Victoria. And it's Mr. Jennings, in fact, who used to be the Minister for the Environment. He's talking about the drain on infrastructure and how more needs to be provided. But didn't the Victorian government have a hand in this under Mr. Bracks and Mr. Brumby and Mr. Jennings?
They certainly did. They had a website, and the website's still there under the current government, called www.liveinvictoria, advertising for more people to come to the state. And at the same time, there were so many pressures on planning and our environment because of additional population. Yet the government had this website in place without really ever mentioning it to the people of Victoria.
So I guess you'd be advocating for the removal of encouragements for rapid population growth.
Oh, certainly. Yes, rapid population growth is not what we want. We want to slow our population growth and aim for a stable population, not a big Australia.
Thank you. What would the Stable Population Party like to see happen? And what would you like to see happen instead of population growth and the kind of economics we've been looking at?
I'd like to see a slowing of population growth. I know that it can't be stopped in the near term, but just moderate population growth and that would relieve the stress on our infrastructure and enable people to have a much better life. They'd be able to get into schools and kindergartens easily. There'd be sufficient teachers to teach them, but they'd be able to get into hospitals, and we'd be operating like a real first world country. The other issue is housing. I'd really like to see an Australia, more as it was a few decades ago, without housing stress, where people could easily find accommodation and they could easily service their mortgages, hopefully just with one salary.